when you play the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. Hey, what's up, you guys? WWE Fan 0599 here again, and today we're going to review Season 1 of Game of Thrones. Now, before we get into this review, of course, I go in depth with my TV show reviews, so if you haven't seen Season 1, do not watch this review because there are going to be tons of major spoilers, so don't watch this review. But if you have seen Season 1, or if you just don't care about spoilers, of course, continue on watching. So, let's get on with the review. So, what this season is basically about, it's about when King Robert's right-hand man dies, he decides he's going to ask his old friend, Ned Stark, to become his right-hand man and help him, in his kingdom and stuff. And, yeah, let's just say a lot of stuff happens throughout this season, involving many different other storylines as well. So, what did I think of Season 1 of Game of Thrones? Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I had no interest in watching the show whatsoever. As much as I've heard so much praise about the show and everything, I just had no interest in watching it. It just never appealed to me. But my good friend Faith, she was like, I think you would like the show. I think you would really enjoy the show. And I was like, you know what? I'll watch it for you, and I'll see what I think of it. So, I sat down, watched the first episode of Game of Thrones, and by the end of it, I was like, why didn't I watch the show way earlier? Because Season 1 is fantastic. Season 1, what a way to start off this show. Fantastic season. I loved Season 1 of Game of Thrones. It is a fantastic season. So let's get into my positives with Season 1, and my positives are, first being the acting. I thought everyone was magnificent, to be honest. Everyone does a great job in this show. I really thought the acting was great in this season. First, let's talk, there's many characters in this show, so I'm not going to go in detail with every single character, but I'll just talk about some of the characters. So here we go. First being the Starks. We get the Starks. The first Stark I'll talk about is Ned Stark, who's played by Sean Bean. And he was by far my favorite character in the entire show. And it's mostly due to Sean Bean's performance. I mean, Sean Bean does a fantastic job as Ned Stark. I really do think so. He was great in this role. And, this might be honestly the best performance I've seen from Sean Bean. He really gives it his all in this, in this season. And I thought he did a fantastic job in this season. I really thought he was great. And by far the best character, the most interesting one. And he was just so great. I thought he did a fantastic job in this season. The woman that plays Catelyn Stark, I believe that's her name, she was really good too. I really liked her as well. Maisie Williams as Arya Stark, she was also one of my favorite characters in the entire season. She was just great to watch on screen, She was like, I don't want to be a princess. I want to fight. You know what I mean? And that never came off as forced to me. It felt genuine. And I was like, you know what? Let this girl fight. She wants to become a warrior. Let her become a warrior. And she was great. I thought, Maisie Williams did a fantastic job as well. So, yeah. Arya was another character I really enjoyed. Sophie Turner as Sansa Stark. She was good too. I thought she did a pretty good job as well. I will admit, maybe in the first couple of episodes, I didn't really like her all that much. But once they developed her more, I was like, okay, I can get on board with this character now. And I actually thought she was really good. So, yeah. Robb Stark, he was good too. I really enjoyed his character. I thought he was a good character for the majority of the season. But once we get to the last few episodes, that's when he really shined as a character. And I thought he was great. So once he got developed more in the last couple of episodes, I thought he was great. And also Bran Stark, I really enjoyed him as well. He was a good character. Now on to the Lannisters, who are just a group of jerks, to be honest with you. The Lannisters are just a group of jerks. First being Lena Headey as, Cersei Lannister, there you go. She was really good. I thought she gave a really good performance. Sure, her character's a jerk, and you can't really get on board with her character because she's a jerk, but her performance is great and really makes you hate that character, and she really does a great job. Nikolai Coster-Waldau as Jamie Lannister. He was good too. I thought he did a really good job as well. You know, he's also a jerk. Like I said, the Lannisters are just a bunch of jerks for the most part, except for one person really. You know, he was really good too. You know, he really made me hate his character as well, and he did a really good job with his performance. Now the kid that plays Joffrey. Goodness gracious, I will say this, his acting is great, and he makes me, you know, hate this character with a burning passion. And Joffrey's just a spoiled brat. Like, he really is. Joffrey is nothing more than just a spoiled brat, and he will get whatever he wants, basically. And, you know, he does become the king, since we are talking about spoilers, he does become the king by episode 7, because, you know, King Robert does die. And it's like, now this guy's the king? Goodness gracious, oh boy. And some of the decisions are very brutal. He kind of abuses his power, really. He really does, you know what I mean? And he does a great job. The actor that plays him does a really great job, and makes me really despise this character. So, I gotta give him props where props is due, you know what I mean? So yeah. And, of course, the last person we have to talk about with the Lannisters, the best one out of the Lannisters, Tyrion Lannister, played by Peter Dinklage. He was great. I loved him in this season. He was just a guy, he was like this smooth, suave type of guy, and he was awesome. I loved him. Every time he popped up on screen, it was just awesome to watch. He was so fun to watch on screen, and Peter Dinklage was just great. So yeah, Tyrion Lannister was another great character. Jon Snow was another really enjoyable character as well. I thought he was good. Kit Harington gives a really good performance as him. So yeah. Now let's move on to the action with this season. The action is fantastic. I love the action with this season. It is brutal. Okay, this show does not hold back with its violence. Okay, no, this show is violent, and I mean violent. Like seriously, usually I never react when it comes to violence, like extremely violent stuff. But in this, I was just like, whoa! Like, I could not believe, like, some of the stuff that happened in this season with the brutality and the action. It was just fantastic. I love the action in this season. You know, I wouldn't say this is the most violent. I will say Spartacus is still the most violent show I've ever seen. But this is a close second by far. And yeah, the action, very great, very well filmed. Makes it feel like that very epic fantasy type of action. It really works in this season. The atmosphere and the scope with this season. I love how they capture this world in this season. It really embodies this world, and I just love it. It's just breathtaking to look at all the different, you know, kingdoms and all that. It's just great, and it really embodies, you know, this world, and they definitely do a great job with that in this, you know, series. And being a TV show and looking this amazing is pretty impressive, to be honest. So looking like on movie scale, like movie scale of type of, you know, atmosphere, and it's just great, and they really do embody this world, and I love it. And the fact that this season has many different storylines, and I'm invested in mostly all of them. There's one, I'll get into that a little bit later on, but to make me invested in mostly all of them, that's great, and that really goes to show you that your show has great storytelling and great characters, because I was very invested, you know, in these stories and seeing where these characters were going in this season. I loved, you know, their stories and everything. It was just very invested to watch on screen. And one thing else, this show has the greatest theme song / opening credits I've ever seen to a show. Like seriously, I think a theme song is really important to your show, because it needs to set up what you're about to see, and Game of Thrones does that well with their theme song and their opening credits very beautifully. The writing is fantastic with the series. I love the writing with this season. The directing was beautiful as well. Very well shot. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous with Game of Thrones Season 1. I really do think the cinematography is absolutely beautiful with this series, and just some fantastic directing. I love the directing with Season 1. Now, let's get into what I've been doing with my TV shows reviews as of late, where I talk about the 6 most defining moments in the season to me. So let's talk about them. First being what we see at the end of the first episode. Literally, the end of the first episode. You know, you see Bran Stark, he's climbing, you know, doing his usual climbing. He starts hearing things. He starts hearing people doing adult things. And he looks up away, and it's, Jaime, and he's doing incest with his sister. Oh God. When I saw that, I was just like, like, I just couldn't believe what I just saw. I was just like, okay. And then poor Bran, because he saw them, Jaime just pushes him out the window, and the poor boy gets paralyzed. And I'm like, Jaime, you jerk. And yeah, that from that moment on, I was just like, this is not going to be like any other show I've ever seen, is it? Right? Yeah. That's exactly what it's going to be. And then, now let's get on to the next moment when, Varys, who is, Daenerys Targaryen's brother, he was promised a crown. He just goes on like a drunken tirade during this party that, Count Drogo, hosts and stuff. And he wants this crown that he was promised and whatever. And they're like, alright, give him this crown. They break his arm, they put him on his knees, and they give him a golden shower. No, not that type of golden shower. No, what they do is they put a bunch of gold in a pot, melt it, and they pour it on his head, basically burning his skull. And yeah, that was great, just to see him die, because I hated his character. He was just nothing more than just kind of a jerk. And it was just great, and I was just like, yes, he's dead. And, just a great moment. And then at the end of episode 7, and then towards the beginning of episode 8, just an ambush happens. King Joffrey just sends a whole ambush to the kingdom, and it's brutal to watch. It really was. It was very brutal. Like, everyone was, like, a lot of civilians were dying, soldiers. It was just a brutal ambush. And I was like, man, that's just brutal. And then the next moment, of course, what moment I'm going to talk about next, of course, involves Ned Stark, when he kind of confesses his crimes and everything. And when we see, he like confesses his crimes and stuff. And then Joffrey's like, you know what? Bring me his head. And I was like, oh no. And because another thing I heard about this, another thing I've been warned about many times about this show is never get too attached to these characters, because they will die very brutally. And yeah, unfortunately my favorite character, who was Ned, gets his head chopped off. And I was like, man, darn it, I was just like, man, I was warned. And yeah, poor Ned gets his head chopped off, and now he's dead. So yeah. Then when Robb becomes the King of the North, that was a great moment as well. I really thought that was just great, to see that Robb, who's leading the battle and everything, him becoming the King of the North, was great as well. And then the last moment I want to talk about is the moment you see literally at the end of the season, when, Count Drogo gets burnt and everything because he's dead, unfortunately. And, Daenerys had these dragon eggs, and she burned those with, Drogo, but the dragon eggs survived. And now the dragons are now out of their, eggshells. And I'm like, oh boy, something's going to go down with this, and I can't wait to see it. So yeah. Now the only negative I do have with Season 1 is that Daenerys' storyline. It's not bad by any means. It's not like a terrible storyline. It just wasn't that invested. But there were some cool moments, like I mentioned in my moments. There were some cool moments to her storyline. But for the most part, I really found it to be disinteresting. I wasn't that interested. It's mostly due to, like, the characters in that storyline and stuff. Like, Daenerys is a cool character. Emilia Clarke does a really good job with her performance. But her character can be one-dimensional sometimes. And I'm just like, okay. Like, she was a cool character and stuff, but she can be one-dimensional sometimes. Same goes with Count Drogo. Like, he can be one-dimensional as well. It's just like, he's like, I'm a guy that beats people. Like, I'm your king. I never felt like his character wasn't anything more than that. Like, just kind of just your typical, muscly man, like, one-dimensional character. So yeah, Daenerys' storyline wasn't all that interesting to me. And that's really the only negative I can give with this season, because Season 1 of Game of Thrones is fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, I should have seen this way earlier. Like, way earlier. So yeah. So it's time for my official grade on Season 1 of Game of Thrones. My official grade on Season 1 of Game of Thrones is an A. It really deserves it. It's a fantastic season. What a great way to start off the show. I loved season 1. It was fantastic. So yeah, season 1 of Game of Thrones definitely deserves an A. So, what did you guys think of season 1 of Game of Thrones? Leave in the comment section below. And I'm WWE Fan 0599, and we'll see you real soon for my review of season 2 of Game of Thrones. Peace.